We are live. I think we're live. Hello, everybody. Yes, do not adjust your sets. it's a ginger person. Hi, my name is William Owen, and I have been foolishly given the chance to host the SE review show today. Unfortunately, I think Reed and others are unavailable, but it's okay. You don't have to suffer me alone. I'm joined here today by John and Joe. John is the author of today's video and is always delightful. And Joe's just relentlessly Australian. I don't know what else I can say about it. There's not much. But yes, I'm sure you guys can introduce yourselves better. So, John, do you want to give us your intro and your channel name and things?
Hi, yeah, my name is John. I have a YouTube channel called Quality Questions where it's just SE, and today's video is my video. It was shot I think more than a month ago, but I'm excited to revisit it and see what I could have done better.
Awesome. Yeah. And Joe.
Yeah, I'm Joe. I'm just a member of the SE community. I found the Discord through Anthony's videos like a lot of people do. And happily participate now in conversations and looking forward to maybe producing some videos of my own someday.
Awesome. I've just realized our little names aren't up. So my name's Will. I'm from my channel's Inspire Reflection. So you can check that out. There we go. Got names and things on the screen. I've very vaguely ideas about what I'm doing here, but it's going to be massively shambolic. I do apologize. But I'm really looking forward to doing this. So John, do you want to give us a preamble to the video that we're going to watch today?
Yeah. So this is my first video of the day in this day, and I didn't know what to expect, but I think it's cold outside, and I'm just like sitting there kind of chilly, waiting for somebody to walk by, and I see this guy, and he seemed personable, like he seemed like pretty, in the mood to have a conversation. So I asked him if he wanted to. He came up with a topic that I had not, handled yet. So it was really interesting. It was a good first conversation, I think.
It's one of the fun things about doing this is that you really have no idea what people are going to say when you ask them if they have an interesting idea to explore. I have heard some really surprising things. You get a lot of repeats, but sometimes something will just come completely out of left of field, and this feels a little bit like that.
Yeah. Do you have any beliefs? Let me tell you. And then
Boy, do I.
You want beliefs? I got beliefs for you, son. Awesome. Right, let's get into it. If I can find the right button, let's try that one. Hey, here we do. This is almost professional. Right, let's get into it.
If there's anything that can put me lower, honestly.
Okay.
Like I said, I'm a really person that's really open-minded, and I always kind of really overthink things. So for me to kind of say you know what, I believe in this. I already thought about it. I already kind of added the puzzles, and it's kind of damn, makes sense. At least for me, makes sense, and it's kind of I want to keep looking into it. Maybe to kind of they say, maybe not. It will not push me my beliefs in it, change it to a lower. But let's say someone comes and be like, you know what, they kind of give you the wrong evidence. It's actually like this.
Yeah.
I'll probably not go lower, but I'll be like, oh, damn, I missed this piece. I didn't know this piece. And I will just stay at the same level and just kind of be like, now more information that I need to add up.
Yeah, loving the lo-fi right now.
Yeah. And it was a good little tagline to include.
It was. Good tease.
Excuse me, would you be interested in doing just a short interview?
Sure.
So I'm doing a thing called street epistemology.
Yeah.
So epistemology is the study of knowledge and how we know things.
Yeah.
So I was asking people as they're going by, is there anything that you believe, you really think it's true? And then I can ask you, how do you know that's true? And stuff like that. It's just a short conversation. I could set a timer.
Sorry, that's quite a nice introduction, actually. It was quite short. I triple over it all the time when I'm trying to explain it,
Yeah.
And it's hard to get it nice and concise, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I this sort of introduction to the conversation, I open with this pretty much every time, but I've always wondered if there's a better way to introduce what SE is. Just I try to, because epistemology, that word, I think a lot of people are intimidated by it because I've said that before, and as soon as I say epistemology, they're like, oh God, maybe I'm not the right person for this conversation. I don't know anything about epistemology. So I just try to like break it down like it's the study of knowledge. It's just, what do you believe, you know?
Yeah, one of the things I really liked about it is that you were speaking more about epistemology in your introduction to it than belief, which is the thing that obviously always feels like the contentious part, and it's not deliberate. Like I think it's the right word, but oftentimes it comes with so much baggage, and I really like the way that your introduction focused on the epistemology component. Yeah,
and I agree that the brevity is really useful too. If you can get, you might lose the hook if you get too long-winded in the explanation of things. So,
that's right.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
Oh, I have pressed play here, but it is not playing. It was seamless as well. Like the timing was really nice. It just flowed naturally back into the video. But for some, here we go.
Sorry, she just.
No, it's
Gali, siéntate, mami.
really cute.
Siéntate, thank you, man.
Oh yeah, the dog.
Gali, siéntate. You can try to.
Yeah.
So just
Yeah.
Oh, Gali. Oh, she won't bite. She won't.
So there's a large amount of comments under this video which talk about how the dog has been trained to attack people with rational thought processes.
So also, I've heard Diamond before, of Diamond Discourse. Like I've heard him talk about how he does not, like when he does it like out on the street like this, he doesn't stop people with dogs because he's afraid of like something like this, I think. But
right.
That or just the dog interrupting the conversation in a way that's not going to be good. But I cannot tell you how many people I ask, hi, would you mind having a short discussion, short interview? And a lot of people say no. So I don't normally like stop people that if they're like walking with their kids or if they have like a family thing going on, like I'll just avoid that. But like sometimes it's like I really want to talk to somebody. Maybe this guy's a dog. It doesn't look too bad. Let me just try to like talk to him. And yeah, so
I think there is a sense that maybe somebody with a dog might be a little bit more willing, maybe because they have that distraction, that kind of I need to carry on walking my dog. I've got my excuse to exit if I need to. If this weird guy with a clipboard turns out to be suspicious, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, you were very calm when that dog started growling. I didn't think I would be that calm.
Yeah.
Right. I'm sorry for that. Gali, siéntate. No, mami, siéntate. Man, that's a good one. Honestly, I'm a really open-minded person.
Yeah.
I honestly really, something I for sure believe is that not long ago, someone told me that supposedly right now, the government or whatever, the top people, be telling us that supposedly our technology, the one we have right now, is the most advanced one that we have ever had.
Okay.
And honestly, I don't know where he got that person. I don't even remember who told me that, but I know they told me that. I don't know from what resource or whatever, but I totally don't believe that at all. Cause the easiest for me or best example I can ever put is that I don't know if you know much about the Mexican or all the South America culture, like the pyramids, all the really back cultural stuff they still have. Like they have pyramids, like what's it called? Even Egypt still has the pyramids,
Okay. Oh, the pyramids?
Yeah. So my question is, if we have the best technology right now, like we have engineers design our streets, our roads, everything. How is come they always have to spend at least every year have to work on it all the time, and the roads or everything that our ancestors built, they're still going on.
Okay, so like
the material, the engineering they put back then, it's something they can't even do nowadays with the technology, engineering, science that we have.
Okay.
At least, I mean, if the government really care about financial, why not make roads that will last us longer and stop spending much money building them every year better and better again and again.
Okay, and like wasting more money and materials.
Exactly.
Why not just build something that lasts?
Exactly.
Okay.
You understand me?
Yeah.
That's one. Also for the health. I don't know if you knew. Honestly,
So
remember.
just one thing here. I would have he sort of immediately goes on to pretty tangential there. Like there's a lot of directions he's going. So I wonder whether I might have tried to pull him up short there. I know it's difficult because he's talking a lot, so it's hard to get a word in edgewise. But maybe it could have been good there to go directly into one of the claims. So the broader claim seems to be that technology was more advanced in the past. But an interesting one, I maybe might have tried to go towards, say, the roads example, and analyze that a bit, just to try and bring him back to some kind of a focal point. But yeah, it's tough.
You're on mute, John.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, I think he. I don't know. It was a really interesting idea for he took kind of wordy explaining all of it, but it was an interesting idea of like we had our ancient ancestors, like other cultures, have built things that have lasted for thousands and thousands of years, like the pyramids, and we have, looking at our like local roads, like, or our buildings, they last not for thousands and thousands of years, but and I maybe we could have explored like, well, I don't know, this country has only been in existence for the past like 200 or so years, so if we look into the future, do you think they might last that long? Stuff like that. But
another question that might be interesting is, the roads that were existing then that are lasting that long, what do you think the relevant levels of traffic are? How many vehicles are going over it? What weight are the vehicles? How fast are the vehicles traveling? That sort of thing. It'd be interesting to really plant that seed in his mind and to see the comparison in the two. But in any case, it is difficult because he follows along with one thought so suddenly. So there's some value maybe in trying to discover ways to break into a line of comments like that.
I just get this impression of sort of, John, you sat there sort of huddled in the cold, just hours go by as people just come by, nobody wants to talk to you, and then suddenly somebody comes along and just unloads this at you, and you're like, it's an embarrassment of riches suddenly. And
well, this is not he was not the worst. Like, I've had people come by and ramble and say things, and I don't like, they say so many different things and they're from thing to thing, and I try to get them like on one topic, and then they just move on even again. So I never even get a video out of it.
So it's a really interesting thing to reflect on for people who want to do that interview. It might be a skill that they could try to develop in interjecting and bringing focus from the interlocutor, for sure.
Because at this point, I'm getting the impression that you really want to get them. You want to ask them for consent to do the recording, because your camera's still down, and they haven't really given that yet. We haven't got a name. And I think maybe one thing you could think to do is like, hey man, can I just stop you there? Like, this sounds absolutely perfect for what I'm trying to do, but I just want to ask you before we continue if it's okay for me to record. That's a great way to interject with something that's protecting them, so you're not being rude or anything. You just want to make sure that they're okay with it. Just say, this is too good, I don't want to miss this. So would it be okay for me to record? But I think being slightly, like, I don't think it's rude to interject if you're doing it like with good intentions, and I think definitely it's a skill to learn. I wish I was better at it.
It might sound funny to give this example, but I've got a lot of experience in the service industry, and you're in a busy restaurant and you have 10 tables you're trying to look after, and someone's telling you their life story. You get really good at interjecting in a way. So a lot of the time humor is useful, where you in some way you make a joke, and you can do it right in the middle of a sentence and develop a skill of a way that won't offend the person. So it's an interesting one, but sometimes you just got to leave that table and go to the next one and help them. So it's interesting.
I mean, I worry about interrupting the person I'm talking to, because like on top of like me interrupting them and seeming rude, he was going on, and like the more he gets his ideas out, I was like, ooh, that's more that we can explore. So
true. There's a balance for sure.
Absolutely.
Right.
Okay, I think I might be having tech problems my end, because I'm playing the video. Oh, here we go. It's just taking
right scientific word, but you can search it up if you don't want to believe me. But there's this like, we can call it chemical on the bread that when it gets old, all mud and stuff like that, that's something in a shot that we take when we're like in really bad health conditions. And I know the people who will use that will be in Egypt. They will let the bread get old and everything, and they will use that for cures and stuff like that. You can search it up as well. Because I know I saw that. Because on Facebook, I follow a lot of like historical and health and a lot of stuff like that. So I started one of my groups there. So I know for me it was shocking too. But you can even search it up, and that's something I totally believe that the science or what we know right now is not even half of what our ancestors already knew.
Okay, so I think the claim that you're like what you're trying to say is like there were like ancient people were somehow secretly maybe more advanced in science than we are today.
And not only ancient, in a lot of cultures.
Okay.
In a lot of cultures.
Yeah.
A lot of other cultures, not just Egypt. Okay.
Like for example.
It's interesting there. I like it's the language you use there to say secretly is interesting because it's suggesting that if it were true, it might be really apparent. So that you're potentially injecting some level of conspiracy thinking there, saying that So it's interesting. I actually like that use of language. It might plant a seed in his mind, even in critically thinking about it already. So
It's interesting to see how the sort of thread of a conspiracy narrative starts at, just an interesting fact that he reads somewhere, in amongst probably, a bunch of other things he's seen that day that caught his attention and that's led him to just slightly wonder about the possibility of this kind of, maybe ancient technology was more sophisticated in some ways. Maybe like I can totally see that there being legitimate articles saying like ancient bread making techniques were much more effective at certain things because we're trying to solve different problems in the modern day and age, right? And so it's quite possible that maybe things that they were doing back then were actually better for small groups but not scalable, for example, something like that. So they might be saying like totally legitimate, scientifically valid article along those lines might make some claim. But then this builds a narrative in this gentleman's head, and now it seems like a very large claim is being made that there's that we don't have half the technology that we had in the ancient times, and there's it clearly has to be therefore a conspiracy that's sort of hidden away all of this stuff. So you can see this sort of slight ladder of escalating sort of suspicion and intrigue, and then confirmation bias kicks in, and it's really interesting.
Yeah, and I don't know, when you're in the middle of doing a conversation like this and like this person's just walked up, you don't know each other, and it's like, I don't know, for me, like my mind is like moving at 1,000 miles a second. Like I'm just like trying to get all of this, like gathered all this new information that he's telling me what he's trying to say. And so a lot of the times the words, like I barely even think about what I'm saying. And so this secretly part that I put in may not have even been like a conscious thing that I was trying to like nudge at him. Like I think it's secret, so I say it. Yeah,
but it's still good that you instinctively went to that language, I think.
Okay.
I mean, it could. I don't think it was too direct, but it does necessarily shape that idea, I think, in a way that it would require to be. And I think it might inject a little bit of thought. So if that was instinctive over a choice, then I still think it went well in that way. So
in many ways, that's kind of partly, I think, what street epistemology is about. In some ways, he's passing his views through your mental models, right? And you're responding to them as honestly as you can, right? And then you're going to be asking him questions that it would occur to you if you were trying to believe what he's presenting as true, right? And so I think that this is partly what the value of street epistemology is, right? Like your natural reactions to a certain extent are kind of useful, I think, for this person to hear how you react to the presence of this new idea, and he gets to hear that with all of the language use that you're choosing to use to express it, right? I think it's good.
It's a good point.
Absolutely.
Once again, I've pressed play, so we have to just wait for it.
Timing is terrible.
Real quick, before we keep going, would you mind if I recorded the conversation? Like
sure, go for it, man.
Okay, I was just making sure. And then, can I get like your first name?
My first name is Jireth. Jireth.
Okay.
Absolutely unnecessary sound effect.
Okay.
He says his last name, just first name. I'll probably bleep out the last name, but
he says his last name. I didn't want to. So when I do things like this, I didn't want like full identity. Like he said his last name, and when I choose to bleep it, I just use like the dial-up sound effect just because I think it's funny. And I think it fits the retro theme of like the intro and all of that. So
it makes sense. But yeah, I love that dial-up sound.
Yeah.
I have like a small YouTube channel where I upload some of the talks. So at the end I'll give you my card, and it has my contact information. And like if you're ever uncomfortable with like the way we talked or anything like that, you can just email me and I'll delete it.
Oh, okay, it's fine. Yeah, sure.
But yeah, so is that something that you like really believe? Like that ancient cultures were more scientifically?
Oh yeah, totally.
Okay.
That's something I totally highly believe.
Okay. Okay. So I would ask, on a scale of 0 to 100, where 0 is I'm not really sure that's true, I have a lot of questions about it, a lot of doubts, and then 100 is no question, no doubt, ancient cultures were more advanced. Where on 0 to 100, how confident are you?
I'm like 60 or 70 because I still have a lot of questions, honestly.
Okay.
It's a conversation that I wish I had more answers. New people, if I could travel and ask like old people how it was back then, I would honestly love to do that, honestly.
To travel and
actually go deeper on all that topic.
Okay, yeah. Like maybe do some sort of like historical research, like archaeology, stuff like that, and like dig it up and figure out like if you can find something really cool.
Something for sure is that on the web you can find a lot of stuff. They're gonna put a lot of stuff out there. Okay. But I know for sure they're not gonna put everything. I don't think there's gonna be a way they put every little thing out there.
Like the governments and the people, like the scientists that do that sort of research, they're not going to put their really controversial findings on the internet. They're just gonna put okay.
So for me, only stuff that we should know. A big example is just with the Area 51.
Okay.
Well, there's so mysterious about that place right there.
Okay.
It's just like the Pandora's box is open because, of course, once you start, like I think thinking like this, a lot of these other views start to make it. You know, they all of the ideas start falling into place and clicking into this worldview, and then of course it becomes quite unwieldy.
I would have liked to have asked a broader question that wouldn't necessarily fit to that topic, but the conspiracy thinking at a larger level, because you rightly identified that he went into saying that there's some kind of conspiratorial level of how much information is being released, and I might try to question what the motive would be behind that. If the scientists are limiting the information, I might say something like, why do you think that they would only release a limited information set, or something like that, to try and see what he thinks the motives are of these scientists that aren't showing all the information that they've gathered.
I'm not sure. I think at this point, and I'm sure you're thinking this as well at this point, Jung, but like I think one of the key things we need to do is pin down a claim. Because it's just sort of exploding into different possible ideas about the world. And I guess one question might be to try to identify if there's like a root claim that helps him believe these other claims. And that's not always easy to identify, but I've talked about this before, this idea of when you get something so unwieldy, it's like a tree. And if you're attacking the branches of the tree, you're not really sort of getting to the heart of the issue, as it were. What you need to do is try to get to the trunk of the tree, the thing that's holding up all of those different branches. And if you can try to understand where that trunk is, then you understand all the things that you need to know to support all of these other sort of wildly disparate narratives. It definitely feels like he's. I don't think it would be very easy, but I think if rolling it back to like what was the first time you came into contact with an idea like this, maybe is a useful one. Trying to identify whether there was a particular thing that he found very shocking or surprising, but believed, and then maybe talk about the epistemology of his reasons for believing it would be great. But yeah, it's really hard when they just. This is like 1,000 SE interviews all in one go.
It's like a Gish Gallop in the way of it's interesting.
I don't know. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think I did trying to narrow his claim down as like just the ancient cultures in general and more advanced.
Yeah.
But he's talking about like not only were they more advanced, like the conspiratorial types that like they're secretly holding the information, like Area 51, like they're not releasing all of the information about the aliens. Maybe. So I think at that point it might be like to protect the public, or there might be certain reasons like that. But I mean, unfortunately don't ask that question. So yeah.
So the problem is it's really easy for him to add new branches to his tree, right? Like, and the more branches he has, he thinks, look at the size of this tree. This tree is massive, right? There's so many things. So there must be something here because all of these things are fitting into it. But if epistemically they're all grounded with the same root, right?
Yeah.
There's the same, like, why do you believe any of this is true? Like, what is the reasons you use to identify that these things are true? Then I think you can try to maybe undermine all of that, not undermine it, but like, you know, explore the epistemology of all of that and get him to really reflect on whether or not, you know, things that he's read on the internet. Is it possible, for example, that he's misinterpreted that information? Is everything on the internet that's available true? Is it possible that some people might have different motives for wanting to explore these ideas? Do people believe ideas similar to this that aren't true? You know, those kinds of things, for example, I think might get to the heart, because of course he's going to have examples like this for days now.
Yeah, fair.
I played.
Okay, like aliens and stuff like that.
Aliens, honestly, like I believe in aliens and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But just my doubt is like, why is so much private? It's like, what do you guys keep it so in the low? You understand me? And if they care so much about the people, what should we know? What should we know what's going on in our country? Stuff like that, you understand me? Like, why do you keep it such a secret for the...
I'm going to set up this camera real quick.
Go for it, man.
So, I think this is really interesting. Hold up, I got to...
Oh, you're fine,
just
man.
real quick.
Vente, mami. Ven pa' acá.
She's like super well behaved. That is so crazy.
She just struggled a little bit with new people and stuff like
yeah.
No, Gali? Oh, shoot. Mami. Sorry for that, man.
She heard you coming on her group.
She did.
Scared me though.
I'm sorry. Siéntate.
It's all good.
Siéntate, mami.
Okay, so shoot. 1 second.
Camera setup.
Yeah, I think this is one thing. It's kind of a minor thing, and it's difficult. I mean, you're like, it's a very complicated setup, you know, and there's a lot of things to wrangle. But of course, it's also that there's a lot of distractions for you in this moment. Like, you're worried about whether the recording's working, whether the audio is working, whether the angles are going to be right, and so it's hard for you then to focus on the conversation. I think it's definitely. It's hard. I would be interested. I've mentioned it before to Anthony and Reed, and I think they have got videos that describes their setups in general that they use. But I think more discussion on how, like, this can be done easily or more easily, so that it can be a little bit more streamlined and won't become a distraction. Because, oh my God, I mean, I have a hard enough time filming in my office, right? Like, the idea of doing this outdoors. Terrifying. But yeah, definitely you've broken down the flow with the conversation, and maybe that wasn't a bad thing in this example.
It could have been useful in this case to put the brakes on a little bit, but it's interesting. It is, there are those challenges in the live setting.
I think it being the first conversation of the day too was, I didn't have everything set up right away, and so when he I mean, I wanted to make sure to get, but because that camera also has a mic, and I want to be able to capture audio and another angle for video. So it being the first conversation, I wasn't set up yet, and I'm like, well, give me just a second. Let me stop this conversation. Let me set this up.
And to be totally fair, it came in hot, so you barely had time to ask him. I pressed play ages ago. I don't know why this is so slow.
So, let me see. So, as far as like thinking that ancient cultures were more advanced, and you said you've seen certain things on Facebook. Like, is that where
I've seen some websites, some we can say comments or posts, even with the scientific person that give the information, and there's a lot of information given about the culture in Egypt. I know there's on the pyramids, there's drawings, there's a lot of stuff left behind that talks a lot about their history, their culture, how stuff used to be. So that's a lot of information that a lot of people don't take consideration. Just basically what they see in the news or in a little post or something, and they don't really dig into it. So I like to read a lot. So it's some stuff that I always kind of get into read and
Okay.
kind of look out to, because like
Yeah,
everybody,
yeah.
I have questions, I have doubts, and I'm a person who really like finds history really cool,
Yeah.
or really like controversial, because who really knows what happened in the past? How many
Yeah.
stuff got left behind in the past?
Okay. So let me see. I would ask, like, so you say you've seen several, or maybe how many, like, people, like you said, you've seen the scientists on, like, it's a video of like an actual historian, like, selling.
It's not exactly a video of,
okay.
of a person like giving the story or explanations.
Oh, okay.
It's just basically like, let's say, have like some chapters or
okay.
pieces of information
Okay.
that's been given with dates, information. Like I say, it could probably be false as well.
Okay.
But so I'm a person that researches, like keeps looking into it and stuff like that.
Okay. So if you hypothetically, like, as you say, you're at 60 to 70% on this, like,
Yeah.
if you hadn't seen those like texts, or hadn't seen that written, that like timeline on Facebook, would you still be at like 60, 70%, or is that like?
If I will see it, let me say, if I will see it more constantly and stuff like that, that's like what your question is, or
Well, my question is, like, you say you're at 60 to 70% because you've read some information.
yeah.
If you hadn't read that information, would you still be as confident?
Yeah, like I wouldn't be as much, because it would be information I never read, I never knew, I never even like got to.
Yeah, this has gotten slightly metaphysical.
I don't know if I asked that question in a good way, because what I'm trying to get at is, you know, you're this confident because you've read this information, you've seen this information on Facebook. If you hadn't read that, would you still hold the belief? Like, are there other reasons other than
how much of the percentage is based on the
right
Facebook? Yeah.
But I think the way he interpreted the question was, you're this confident because you read this information. If I hadn't read that information, I wouldn't even know of the idea or the concept. So like, that's that he's saying, I wouldn't believe this. Yeah, I wouldn't be as confident because I don't think I would have known about this concept at all if I hadn't read what I've read. So
yeah. I wonder if the question something like, you know, are all things that are written on the internet true? How can we determine whether the thing that we've read on the internet is true? What and you know, I really like this guy. Like, I mean, there's a budding historian here. Like, there's somebody who really is interested in history and is excited about his access to this. And it seems like it would be great for him to have these enthusiasms, but like, it feels like they've gotten sort of wrapped around this sort of conspiracy narratives, unfortunately. Okay, we're just gonna have to wait for the video to play. I don't talk amongst yourselves.
It's a lottery of how long it takes.
It's really weird.
Yeah, it's strange.
Seems to be getting longer as well. Like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
Come on. It's just not having any of it. I really don't know what to.
Even in my understanding.
Yeah.
So I would definitely not believe it as much. But it's there on the same post. There's always people like adding like, oh, you probably missed this. Other people will be like, oh, you missed this also. So a lot of people like comes to it as well, and like everything keeps adding up slowly by slowly, like pieces and this and that.
Okay. So even if there's a post that like says this ancient culture had some sort of technology, there might be somebody that will correct that information, or like try to update it or add to it, or
they're definitely there's people that sometimes add to it. Some people like, oh, you missed this, and like I said, I'm not that, oh, you know, I just saw it on the post, I'm a complete believer. No, I go like, oh, you know, like they're saying it is, let me kind of research it, you know, and stuff like that. Obviously, like, I'm a person that always says, don't always believe everything you see and read. I always look into it, you know, look for it, research it. There's stuff that sometimes they say, oh, this happened, and eventually never happened. But
it might be interesting to ask you where he goes to do that research. So try to tease out a little bit of what his information source is after the initial suggestion on a Facebook post. Just to see. I mean, it sounds like he's seeing random posts on the internet and then seeing comments, and he's saying, well, you know, I shouldn't believe everything I read. I then go and investigate. But where? Is it on another Facebook page? Is it, you know, like, what are his what are his sources and how does he arrange them in, reliability and such like that.
So
It'd be interesting to explore.
I think at this point though, like I'm finding it really interesting that he may be believing this sort of, I don't know, fringe idea, but he's got like I want to do research, I want to see evidence, I want to, not believe everything I see online. Like he has all of these really cool critical thinking tools, but then maybe they're getting misapplied or not used to the level that they need to, because I mean for all I know, ancient aliens could have existed. There could be, or not aliens, but ancient technologies that were way more advanced than what we have now. They could exist, and I just don't know about it. But I don't know. Like I don't know if it's likely. And then
yeah. So I think that's always a useful thing to remind ourselves of. Like, I'm a big, I've said this many times, but I'm a big advocate of the certainty is a position nobody can take on anything. I think it's very difficult to be 100% certain about anything. And so we can't say for sure that the ideas this gentleman is expanding upon are false. But we then want to question, though, why he's reached the level of confidence he seems to have had on these issues. I think also it's interesting that there has been an increase, I think, in sort of almost sort of social pressure not to be a certain type of person on the internet. Somebody, we would ridicule somebody who hasn't done some research and just believes the post. That's become something I think we've adopted culturally, and that we want people to be able to say, oh, I've done some research on it. I did research on it. I didn't just sort of read the post and then believe it immediately. And so that's kind of useful, but I worry that it's given way to a sort of a facade of doing these things rather than actually understanding what it means to try to find supportive evidence and not be operating in the space of confirmation bias. It's not enough just to research some other examples, as Joe was suggesting. If he immediately goes to myconspiracytheory.com, I don't know if that's a real thing, but presumably, and looks it up and says, oh no, there's totally an article on this website that supports this idea, then maybe it's okay. That's not research. We need to find whether or not there are counterexamples or reasons why we shouldn't believe this idea. That takes practice, and it's something we all get better at as we get older, and that we'll never be fully good at. But I think it's definitely worth trying to do, rather than just this sort of lip service sort of critical thinking that seems to be certainly. I mean, it's progress of a kind that people feel they need to have done these sorts of things. I think, but I'm not sure if it's quite reaching where we need it to be.
Yeah, sure.
All right, let's see how long it takes. It's getting longer, so I feel like I could make a cup of tea in the time that the video from the pressing the play button to actually starting. I feel like the video is just playing all the way through again to the point where it starts to play. I think that's what's happening.
Yeah. MyConspiracyTheory.com is not a thing. Just
okay, I'll register that after the show.
It's going to need to be a guitar interlude each time
You can
just play here. I'll get that.
You could register it right now. You have the time.
It would just be AI generating new conspiracy theories. That's all it would be. GPT-3 generating conspiracy theory ideas. I'm so sorry, everybody. I don't know what to do to improve this ridiculous. For some reason, I press play and then we have to wait.
I'm at 60-70 because I haven't really read too much about it.
Yeah.
But at least for the pieces I add myself, it's kind of like, oh man, it's like it drives me. It kind of makes sense, and it adds more questions to the topic.
Okay. Let's see. What is something that you could see that would increase your confidence in this? Like, you're at 60. What would get you to an 80 or 90?
Something that will really, it's like if I go, let's say, for me that I'm Hispanic.
Okay.
I'm Hispanic. I really believe, I'm really passionate about the Aztec and all the culture.
Yeah.
So, like, something I would really would love to go is like go and be like, you know what, this is our native. He really's been here for like, let's say, obviously not too long years, but he knows a lot. And then they can like speak to me and be like, you know what, this happened. Because it's going to be, for me at least, an old person that's been here for a long time is a person with a lot of knowledge. That they know a lot of stuff that we don't.
Okay, so if they, like, you're interested in the Aztec culture, if there was like maybe a descendant who had
if there was a descendant, like, totally,
who lived in that area and
or not like exactly that lived that area, but comes from that generation that
Okay.
knows like, oh, my grandpa or my grandpa and stuff like
Yeah,
that. You know, that
yeah,
would
yeah.
totally for me would be like, wow.
That seems like quite a recent person for somebody who's claiming something about ancient technology. I mean, even just 200 years ago, like it seems like the timeframes here don't seem to be quite adding up.
No,
to that
and
idea.
it's a recurring theme. He already touched on that earlier, as if when he spoke about traveling earlier, if he could speak to an older person traveling, as if that would give him direct access to these ancient cultures that he's speaking about. So yeah, it would be interesting for a little clarification there. And even he seems to associate wisdom with age. So it might be interesting to ask a question like, does the age of a person affect, the truth of their claims or something like that? And he seems to think that a person just being older will, there'll be
Lend
more truth to what
credibility.
they're saying. Yeah, exactly. It will add credibility. Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that's a really interesting angle to approach it from, and I think even on top of that, like if we went to one of these areas where that ancient culture supposedly lived, and we found one of their descendants who was really old, but then he was like, yeah, no, my grandfather's grandfather's grandfather was a part of this ancient. I don't even think that's enough generations to be that old, but if my grandfather's grandfather was lived around this time, and no, there was no ancient technology. Like if you found out from an old person from that area that no, it wasn't actually true, how would that affect his confidence?
Yeah, that's another great point as well. That would be
It's a good. Is that a Mark Solomon move that you made? Because it's a great question, and one I always forget to ask is what would increase your confidence. I think it's a really good question to ask, and Mark Solomon is good at asking that one, and I've noticed it a few times, and I always forget it. And I think it's also a good one to ask before you ask what would decrease your confidence. And I think it means that you're not trying to just, one of the problems with SE sometimes is it can feel like the objective is to decrease the confidence, which of course it isn't. And I think that asking that more positive case first, I think is useful. Yeah, it's a good question.
Like I would totally say with that person.
On your feet?
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, you're a puppy?
Yeah, she's 7 months.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. Sorry.
Yeah.
I know, I'm so sorry.
It's all good. So, okay. So that would take you from like a 60, 70.
It's around to like kind of like an 80, 90.
Yeah. Okay. What is something that you could see that would decrease your confidence? Like take you from a 60 down to like a
honestly,
40,
at this point,
30.
I don't think there's anything that can put me lower.
Ooh.
Honestly.
Okay.
Like I said, I'm a really person that's really open-minded, and I always kind of like really overthink things. So for me to kind of say like, you know what, I believe in this. I already thought about it. I already kind of added the puzzles, and it's kind of like, damn, makes sense. At least for me, makes sense, and it's kind of like, oh, I want to keep looking into it. Maybe like to kind of like, let's say, oh, maybe not. It would not push me like my beliefs in it, change it to a lower. But let's say someone comes and be like, you know what, they kind of give you the wrong evidence. It's actually like this.
Yeah.
I'll probably not go lower, but I'll be like, oh, damn, I missed this piece. I didn't know this piece. And I would just stay at the same level and just kind of be like, oh, now more information that I need to add up.
This is an interesting thing I ran into in another conversation I just had, where the person seems to think they have the complete information set. And so there's this impression that if any more information were possible to come forward, it would only corroborate their belief. So I encountered this in this other conversation, and I was having difficulty in thinking of a way of wording. It's like you need to reiterate the hypothetical. Let's imagine a world with any possibilities, and what hypothetical possibility, in this imaginary world could come along that would lower your confidence, because they're thinking into this world of reality that exists where their idea is a certainty. And so, I missed it in the conversation I was having. And so I think something like reiterating the hypothetical might help in them searching for something that would work against their information set that they have already. So yeah, it's an interesting one, but this parallels really well with the conversation I just had, actually. So
Yeah, there's one thing I think. Firstly, this guy is super nice. Like he's a
Yeah.
very friendly guy, and like
Yeah.
I really like the way he's trying to approach the problem, and I have every respect for that. And I think like one of the things that's useful to remember is that this might not be like he definitely has spent a lot of time thinking about this issue, right? So this is not the first time I think he's thought about these ideas. He's clearly thought about these ideas a lot, but it may be the first time that he was articulating them in this way, right? And so sometimes when we're trying to construct our arguments and present our views, like he's having to think about it in a way where he's conveying it to a stranger, and you know he may it may only be through that action of just trying to express it to somebody else that he's going to notice that maybe some of the things like I've said here don't make that much sense. Actually, maybe if I was as the comment just a moment ago suggested, you know, at the beginning of the thing, he said I'm totally open-minded, but there's nothing that would make me less confident. That seems like something that's worth noticing, I think, in your dialogue. And it may be that he just hasn't noticed that he's saying those two things, and you know. I think sometimes just even having these conversations, even if progress isn't feeling like is being made, I think a lot of progress gets made because he's hearing himself having to say these things, and at some point he's going to think about that. Maybe in a few days, maybe he's having a shower and he just suddenly sort of replays the conversation in his head. And he starts to realize, like, hang on a second, like maybe that was a bit weird what I just said there. Yeah,
it's very true. Just externalizing of the ideas creates reflection, even if not in the moment. So there is
100%.
value for sure.
Because honestly, I don't think there's something that will put you down on something that's kind of like historical, that's being probably proven or already with evidence.
Okay.
Like, I don't think there's something that you can kind of be like, you know what, I'm not going to believe that so much anymore, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe there is some stuff that you can be like, oh, you know, I probably believe this, but then I'm like, oh, no, never mind, I was totally wrong. Like, yeah, there's probably some stuff, but on this one, I don't think there really is.
Okay. So in other areas, on other topics, there are things that could decrease your confidence.
Yeah, it could.
But
honestly, I don't have one in mind. But
Okay.
I don't doubt that would be one, like,
Okay.
something that I've always heard people discuss, something I don't really like to discuss about. It's about ghosts.
Okay.
Like, I think that's a topic that everybody goes up and down.
Yeah.
But honestly, for me, it's not something that I'm really like into, that I can't really give much about.
Okay.
But I think that would be a good one, I think.
Okay. So I have a really quick thought experiment that before we do that.
Yeah.
How are you on time? Like, do you like? I don't want to keep you here all day. Like,
I don't got nothing to do, to be honest.
Okay.
My day off.
Okay.
I was just walking my dog out. She has a lot of energy, so I spent here like 2-3 hours.
Okay. I'm gonna set a timer for like maybe another 5-6 minutes.
So that's fine, yeah.
Just in case, because like.
Yeah, I know. Trust me, man. I can go on and on and on.
Right. Okay. So so I have this marker.
Yeah.
And if I wanted to test gravity, right? I'm pretty confident gravity exists. Like on the scale, I'm like 99 to 100% sure that gravity exists, right?
Okay.
And if I take this marker and I let it go, it's probably gonna fall to the ground.
Yeah.
Right? And I could test gravity like 100 times. Like I could drop this marker, or I could let go of it, and it would usually just fall.
Just fall, yeah.
But there could be a time, like hypothetically, like where I let it go and it doesn't fall, it just like stays there in the air and doesn't move. Or I could let it go and instead of going down, it goes like sideways.
Okay.
And so if like I have a way where I can see what it might be like for my confidence to decrease. Like there's a way for my beliefs to be wrong.
Okay.
And so I'm just curious, like if you say like you're trying to be open-minded, but if there's no way, there's nothing you could see to decrease your confidence? Like you said you're at 60, but there's nothing you could see that would drop you lower?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so like for example, you say the gravity will change. Okay. But my question is, until then, you're gonna still believe 99%. You feel me?
Okay.
Yeah, it's not gonna change until it happens.
Okay.
So right now, I'm at 60 confident.
Yeah.
But like I said, I never know someone's gonna come and tell me, you know what, it totally brings down.
Yeah.
You know? So when that happens, it's gonna be like I said, I said information I didn't know. That I would take in consideration.
Yeah.
Maybe, and like I said, it might not go low.
Okay.
Maybe it might go low. Maybe it's just gonna stay the same, and I'm just gonna keep adding information, keep looking into it.
Okay.
But the thing is that whatever I believed in, maybe I was right or wrong, it's still there. My knowledge maybe was maybe off, but the information is still there. The topic's still there. So it's just gonna be more open. It's just gonna be from A to B. Now I'm gonna go to C and D. So
Okay.
my knowledge is gonna expand more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we could explore that in a second. First of all, what do you guys think about the thought experiment? Do you think it's helpful at all?
Yeah, I like it. Although I would probably say if I let go of the pen and it floated up into the air, that was probably because that's the obvious negation of
The opposite.
of gravity, as it were. Like, and you could even talk about, and it might even be relevant here. Like, you've learned something different about the way the gravity is working on the pen, right? So maybe there's something about the pen, maybe it's something about gravity, but you've learned something different by seeing that. Like, and this is relevant, I think, to what this gentleman's saying here, because he's saying, like, I've got all this information, right? And like that's I've definitely read it, right? It's definitely things that people have said. So these arguments do exist. So I need to, like, if I learn new things, then they have to explain why people might be saying these other things, right? So it's all needs to fit together. But in this example, like, maybe what he would be learning is the nature of conspiracy thinking. Like that you know, the shift would be like, yeah, of course these things have still been said, but maybe what they're talking about is not what they appear to be talking about.
Yeah, it's I like the example, but it feels like he missed the point again, and I think I would feel really challenged in how to bring him there, because it seems like he's saying, okay, sure, but I already have all this information and I have that, and until something else comes along, then it's not. But you're saying, well, what is the something else that can come along, right? He's missing. You know, he's still missed the mark. So it might be like, okay, yeah, I understand what you're saying there, but what would be the thing that would come along that could possibly lower your confidence? Maybe. Yeah, it's an interesting. Yeah, I would find it challenging of how to bring him there after he missed the point again. So
yeah. So I think, like, he's missing. Like, it's not. It's what hypothetically could lower your confidence. Could you see something? Like, is this belief, you know, in theory, like, is it falsifiable? But I think he's missing, like, that hasn't happened yet. That, you know, maybe also it might be not. I'm not trying to, like, disparage him, but, like, it might be like a lack of imagination of what could. Like, there's nothing that I could even think of that would, until, like, maybe somebody comes along and says, would this lower your confidence? And he goes, oh yeah, that would. I just didn't think about that. So.
Which is why you're a great example for this might be the perfect time for the example you gave before of if you traveled, met a older person from this community, you know, with lineage back to that technologies, and they told you that, you know, the long history of their family says there were no technologies like this, you know. So yeah, it might be a time for examples, but you don't want to be too leading as well, right? So it's interesting.
So I think this would be a great place for an outsider test, though. I think what we've got here is somebody who's really convinced by some information that he's read on the internet and some evidentiary supporting information that's making quite a large claim. And, like, I'm wondering, are there any conspiracies that he's aware of that are based with similar amounts of information that he does not believe are true? Right. And if that would be the case, like, if he believes all conspiracy narratives are true or have an element of truth in them, then that's quite a strong claim. Like, and again, that would be worth looking into. But if he would identify that there are some conspiracy theories that would present themselves with similar levels of evidentiary support, how is he equivocating between those two things? And that if you, as an outsider, were trying to understand whether one person presenting this seemingly conspiracy theory idea with this sort of level of support were presenting your argument, and then there was somebody else with a similar level of information that you do not think is true, is representing their view using the same arguments, how could you, John, equivocate between these two representations? And I think that might be interesting, but I would really like to know if there are conspiracy theories that he believes are not true, and that would be, I think,
where the division falls, right? Like
contrast,
yeah, totally.
Maybe I was right or wrong, but you feel me? The information is still there. Maybe another way or another. Maybe like I said, maybe the technology. Let's say I thought it was way more advanced.
Yeah.
They're gonna say, you know what? Yeah, maybe it was advanced on this topics, but we're more advanced on this one.
Okay.
Then they can be like, you know what? That's where you're wrong. Okay, you know, like I didn't know about this technology, but now I know about more of it.
Okay.
Maybe I was wrong,
but
maybe I was like, oh, you know, I was wrong. My point of view wasn't what I thought it was.
Yeah. So hypothetically, like just in like, what if there was new research that came out, like new historical research that was like for the Egyptians, like when they built the pyramids, it was like we found evidence that they used this material, and we found blueprints for the pyramids, and we found instructions on how they planned to do it, and none of it used advanced technology. It was all, you know, just a bunch of people working together to make it. Like
until then, that point, I will be wrong. But until that doesn't happen.
Okay, but would that?
Well, that will then that I will be like, you know what? My question was resolved.
Okay.
My doubt was resolved. Like so far right now, there's not an evidence that says, you know what, like we can do the same. We'll do the same for like, I don't know, the rest of our lives or whatever generations. But so far, it's like they're still building roads. They're still going over and over. And those pyramids, I'm pretty sure they haven't even touched them.
Okay.
So like you said, you just proved me wrong that, you know what, something that can change my mind, but
okay. Like, I wasn't.
It's a kind of conspiracy theory of the gaps here now, right? Until you can prove my theory to be wrong, then it's the right. I'm confident in it being the right theory.
But at least you were effective in having him acknowledge, or at least having him understand what you meant by there could be what information would be that would lower his confidence in the claim. It's I mean, that alone, having that seed planted in mind, I think is going to be incredibly useful moving forward. It's like, okay, well, there needs to be another side to the scales that can have weight added to it, right? So
it's rewatching this now that I'm happy, but also a little bit disappointed, because yes, there was you got me. There could be evidence that would lower my confidence. But then he follows it up with, but until I see that evidence, like the pyramids are still standing.
Yeah.
So ancient technology was really good.
Yeah.
It's difficult. I think I think you've been doing a great job, and especially with somebody whose view is quite windy, and there's lots of sort of facets to it, and it is just a broader conspiracy sort of thinking. One of the things he keeps coming back to is the idea of the roads, and I think that with a lot of people, there's like this one compelling idea that they discover that they feel, like it's a kind of it's a kind of aporia moment, really. It's just an aporia moment created from something that's like it's kind of like deepities with Daniel Dennett talks about deepities, like these statements that seem really profound and interesting until you think about them for more than 10 minutes, and then you realize it's not saying anything at all. Deepak Chopra is the master of these things. But I think there are stories out there and ideas out there that when you read it, like it makes you think about something and like plays on maybe your lack of experience in a specific area. Like I don't have a lot of experience with ancient Egyptian architecture and methods of masonry and tools. I'm pretty sure that there is a fairly comprehensive understanding of how the pyramids were built. Like I think this conspiracy idea has been around for a very long time, but I think it's been very much usurped by a fairly good understanding of how they likely did it. But in any case, I think I think the Rhodes example for this gentleman is the one moment where it's a very present example to him, it seems. And it's one he keeps coming back to. And whilst I think it's difficult I think it might have been useful to explore the concept of the roads for that reason. And one of the things that you might notice about the idea of the roads might be something like, are roads today solving a different problem to roads in ancient times? And what material options did they have in ancient times versus what material options do we have now? I mean, essentially in ancient times, stone and wood were your only two options. And I don't think those wooden roads are around anymore. There may be paths that were left there, but probably not much at all. But certainly stone roads, if you're going to make a road purely out of stone, then it's going to stick around, right? Those stones aren't going anywhere unless something really meaningful happens to that landscape. But they're solving a different problem with different materials, right? And I think it might be interesting to explore whether or not those things would be interesting to him, because again, he keeps coming back to the roads idea as the sort of champion metaphor in his mind for this kind of thinking that he's got going.
Yeah. And I think it's just worth quickly noting here that, and I think we paused right in the moment where you're clarifying that you weren't trying to have a gotcha, but I just wanted to note that it's worth noting how good your rapport seems with him. He seems quite happy to speak to you and to be challenged, and so there's a good level of rapport here, and I think he feels like you're listening to him, and all of that's worth noting. It's really adding to the functionality of the conversation.
Which I'm glad that the rapport kind of happened throughout the conversation, because I kind of straight up skipped the rapport building process. Like I didn't really open up with that, how are you today, what brings you to the park, like we kind of just like jumped straight into the conversation. But the conversation flowed so well, and he's like such a nice guy that like it just kind of, we kind of get each other, we're kind of like, oh yeah, this that, we're just building the rapport as the conversation goes, and we seem to be jiving with each other pretty well.
Yeah, it's a good indicator though that rapport needs to be not just started at the beginning, but it needs to be maintained throughout and built throughout. And I think that this is definitely a friendly conversation. At no point has it felt heated, and I think that, definitely is great. And I think largely actually this is to a certain extent you're quite lucky with your interlocutor, right? Because he's not feeling offended by you challenging his views, right? He's not defending them as a sort of personal attack. He seems genuinely like he's open to discussing these things with a stranger, and that's really great. But yeah, you've done a great job all the way through this one. Awesome. Right, I'm going to press play and we'll see how long it takes. So it's been getting quicker, but then it seems to slow down again.
Those one time you
trying to prove you wrong.
No, but like now you made me question myself. You now like, oh yeah, he has a point. Like, maybe one day they could find stuff like that. Yeah. Maybe right there I would be like, you know what? Yeah, like the Ibs didn't really have the best technology. Now they overcome over it. But until that happens, so far I'm like, yeah, I still think.
Okay. All right, we can go another talk there, but I really appreciate you.
No, you're good. Honestly, it was nice talking about it, because now, like I said, I now question myself, like, damn, like, what if they just haven't discovered everything,
Yeah. Okay.
There's still more. I'm pretty sure there is. Like,
that's credit to you, John, but also credit to him. I mean, just to be, recognize that in that moment, like so quickly, and I think that's really just fantastic. I mean, you it's not always easy to get those sort of real clear wins here, but that's just perfect. I mean,
yeah. Well, like, I mean, that's kind of like the highest praise as a person practicing street epistemology is like, I didn't even. Like, he still believes his claim. Like, he still believes that there's ancient technology. But, like, throughout the conversation, and at the end he admits, yeah, you know what? Maybe they haven't discovered everything. Maybe there are, reasons why I might increase or decrease my confidence on this. And that, I feel like, was such a huge moment from the beginning when he's like, nope, nothing could lower my confidence in this. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, it's the goal, right? He's now questioning all the contributing factors that have made up his level of confidence in the claim. So he's still believing in the claim, but he's thinking about where his confidence sits and what's attributing to that confidence. And he's thinking, okay, well, maybe I need to look at that further. And I mean, that is just a perfect example of what we should be trying to achieve. So yeah, it's brilliant.
100%.
I like it.
Yeah.
The play roulette. It's a good game.
So
you could have bets
just
on
their construction, but like their magic life. Like a lot of people still believe, like for example, like I'm from Guanajuato. You can search it out, Guanajuato, Mexico.
Okay.
They're known really for the mummies. Like there's still like, if they're the main Guanajuato city, there's a place where you can go and visit. They have a bunch of mummies, like a lot of historical stuff from Guanajuato. So for example, like that for me, that's why I believe a lot of magic. I believe a lot of the magic. That's another topic with Egypt or cultural. Like they had that's why I'm really strong on the topic, because they have a lot of like similarities. You understand me? They have like a lot of things that like maybe they were not celebrated the same way or used it the same way, but they connect to something. You know?
Okay.
Like the whole like the whole, like I said, the magic, like the underworld, all that stuff. That's something they all have in common. You know?
Yeah.
So that's why it's kind of like, damn.
So just to be clear, I was laughing there because he's just a goldmine of just like really interesting subjects. Any one of these would be a great conversation in of themselves, and just as the conversation's wrapping up, even more like interesting ideas are coming out that would be really great to explore.
Well, that's what I think. I was kind of laughing because it's almost like it was a perfect point to end the conversation, and it's almost like he's teasing the sequel for you. It's like he's a writer at the end of a movie that's teasing the sequel. It's like, well, I also have this belief, and he's making himself seem like an excellent follow-up partner for
sure. Did you get like his contact information, John? Did you have a way to follow up?
I don't think I got his contact. I mean, I give my contact.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But yeah,
not been in touch yet. That's a shame. It would be great to talk to him again. But yeah, such an interesting guy.
And like I said, like for example, all this like Mexico, Guatemala, Egypt, and like even China, they have the big wall.
Yeah.
Like it's still there. Like they had like all these different areas in the world had this construction that so far is still there.
Yeah.
So it's just, at least it's just kind of like coincidence, like how it's not only one.
Yeah.
There's several,
Okay.
So that's for me, at least the kind of like the blue flags or the good flags, kind of like, oh man, the pattern, you understand?
So there's
patterns.
There's a lot of different cultures that have all come to like some sort of similar magic okay.
This is a really great example of survivor bias because clearly all of the ancient technologies that are no longer there are no longer there. So he's only noticing the structures that were created in ancient times that have survived to this day and age, which I'm pretty sure he wouldn't claim was all of the things that were made at that time. We know even like the Great Wall of China is falling apart. And
that's what I was going to mention. The parts that are seen on camera now are meticulously restored by modern methods, and you can go to parts of the wall that are just dust. There's like one spire of rocks left, and the walls either side are literally reduced to dust. So that would be interesting. But of course, as wrapping up the conversation, I'm not going to delve into that now. But there's some interesting epistemology being used here.
This guy, I mean, if I ever do see him again, like there's so much to explore, because like the magic, I think what he said there was a really interesting thing that I would want to explore with him. Is there have been several of these ancient cultures that have all come to this magical system where they have probably like spells, rituals, and stuff like that, and this ancient civilization has come to the same or similar magic as this civilization. Like I think that's what he was saying. Like there's been several cultures that have all developed magic independently of each other and come out to like similar results. And like that, I think that would be I don't know, an amazing conversation to try to like break down.
Yeah, definitely. I think it would be. I just want to clarify. Like, if we're laughing at this person, I think it's not because the ideas are silly, but because he's just such a goldmine of like great conversation. It feels like he's a series in and of himself. Just to talk through these things with these people. He's such a friendly person and genuinely interesting.
He really is.
I'm really enjoying it. But I do really think survivorship bias is one of the things that now I think about it really should have been raised earlier on in the conversation. Like, have all ancient structures and technologies survived? If he thinks that's the case, that would be really interesting. But if he recognizes that only some of them, are there characteristics of the things that have survived that we might notice? Like, they're all made out of huge, massive chunks of rock, and they're also all falling apart. I think that would be interesting. But super great guy.
So this is way out of left field, sort of like a thought experiment but you bring up a really good point. Like if there were an ancient civilization that they had really advanced technology, but all of it was biomechanical. Like all of it was made out of stuff that could eventually decompose and deteriorate, and we would never see evidence of it thousands of years later.
Right.
Like, if that ancient culture existed, and how would we ever know about it? Are there certain cultures that have stuff that is built that will last? But yeah, I don't know.
That's a really interesting point, because again, there's something else we probably missed there, was like, you know, he's equating the survivability of something with its technological advancement, right? And we know that actually now we're working really hard to build materials that will degrade and disintegrate over time, because we have this huge problem with plastics and rubbish, and you know, we want things to actually be useful for a while but then disappear and disintegrate and go back to inert things. And I think that it's a really interesting assumption that because something has lasted a long time, it's more advanced in some way, which is not necessarily true.
Imagine just like cultures, like for example, China, they have Buddha, and they also had, back in the day, they had Jesus. There's like, and a lot of stuff, like they always had a god. Everybody had a god. Aztec had the gods, like the god of death, god of water, god of fire, everything. So everybody relates to gods. Everybody relates to gold. Everybody relates to power. Everybody relates to their own like little cities, their art divisions. It's like not right now that it's like Salem, Portland, Woodward. Nah, but back then it's like Salem had their own ones. Woodward had their own areas. Like you understand me? It wasn't that much. Like some troops work together and everything. Not all of them. But it's just stuff, you know. There's kind of like patterns and everything. Like you know, it's there. Like it's being thought, it's being spoken about. It's some books. So that's why it's kind of like, oh man, you know, what's more deep into that topic?
Okay. That is also really interesting. I don't want to take up all your time, but like,
sorry, man.
No, you're good, man. Well, I think like having this kind of talks, it's good to take breaks. So, but yeah, let me give you my card.
Sure, man, go for it.
And so, oh shoot.
I might try to reach to you because I don't want her to scare you.
Yeah, it's all good. Well,
Nagalis.
oh shoot. So yeah, street epistemology is just like a way to have a conversation about beliefs.
Yeah.
I would encourage you, like, if you want to, like, you can go to the website, you can look it up on YouTube, and there's several YouTube channels that, like, talk about this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, man, I really appreciate you stopping to talk. Like, it was...
Yeah, man, and anytime, like, I'll obviously for sure contact you if you want. Anytime, sit down, have more topic.
Yeah.
I don't know if you would like that, too.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh man, I really hope this guy reaches out, because he's such a lovely guy to talk to. He's got so many fascinating ideas to explore. Yeah, this was really great. Like, what are your final thoughts on this one, John?
I mean, Jireth, I think it was his name. I'm not sure, not Jireth, but yeah, if he ever wants to reach out, I would love to talk again. He's so personable, so friendly, so nice to talk to, and honestly, like the honesty and the exploring the ideas and then genuinely wanting to figure it out, like that was so really cool of him. Yeah, anytime.
Absolutely, yeah. Seems super nice guy. Did you have any final thoughts, Joe?
I think, we reflected on some interesting points that we might have, things like bringing focus to someone who's all over the map, and it was a good conversation that resulted in reflection. We saw firsthand. The rapport was excellent. You were respectful. That I felt like he was being listened to. Good points there. And also I think it was really useful to review, because there were some things we could learn about ways to have the conversation more effectively and to, help focus somebody that's all over the map. So yeah, I think you did a great job, and
awesome.
100%
as well.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. I just mirror all of that. I think it was a great conversation. And yeah, once again, I really, really hope that guy gets back in touch, because I think you'd just be a fascinating person to talk to all day long. So yeah, everybody, thank you very much for watching. I hope this hasn't been too shambolic. Apologies for the slightly pausey video, but in any case, thank you for watching. And we see you on the next time. So yeah, goodbye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.